Buddy, eyes up here.
You have failed this city.
Wow. I know, right? Hey! Quit messing around!
I'm not messing around. I'm doing important stuff.
Okay, this does not look like this is gonna end well. For you guys.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me! Who's got you?
It's you, Lorraine. What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not wearing hockey pants.
But that is being human.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Watchtower, where we talk all things DC. I am your host, Slav, and today is going to be a fun episode, I think. I hope. I think I say that all the time, though. Regardless, it is what it is. We're going to move on, and we're going to talk about some things that have come up over the past week. I do apologize that I didn't have a show Friday, but as I said earlier in the week, I was not feeling well all week, and I just wanted to give myself that extra day of rest just to kind of get over whatever it was just hitting me. So I'm feeling better now, but enough about me. What are we going to be doing or talking about today? Number one, we're going to talk about the movie theaters versus Netflix. It looks like there's some more information coming out on what Netflix looks and views as a suitable amount of time for films to be in theaters. So we'll talk about that. James Gunn had a long conversation with Variety. So we will look at some of the highlights from that. There's some potential Booster Gold news. And I want to talk about what the possible 5 big stories for DC will be in 2026. So let's get into all of this. How's it going, everybody? Glad you can make it. It's middle of the day on a Saturday. I don't expect to be having too many people watching, but that's okay. That's okay. I wanted to get the show out. I still wanted to do everything and not, leave you guys hanging. Not leave you guys hanging. So who do we got? We have Critic Chris in here. Says, hey, Slav and everyone, what's going on? Donovan's in here going crazy about the 17-day thing, talking about, let's see, he's also talking about Sean O'Rourke. Man, he's just going on and on, I tell you. Trayvon says, well, I'm at work. I didn't know you were at work, Trayvon. I'm sorry. But maybe you have the opportunity or the ability to listen while you're working. I don't know. Let's see. Anything else? Anybody else jumping on here? Nobody else right now. That's okay. Like I said, I don't expect there to be too many people watching live today. It's a Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I don't expect too many people watching, but that is okay. Let's see. Let's just get into it then. How about that? Let's just dive in because I don't want to do too much. Oh, Derpy's here. He says, hi. Hello, Derpy. Derpy 50 first 2. All right. Now, the other day, so the whole Netflix buying Warner Brothers thing, everybody's been up in arms about the theatrical aspect of it. And when I say that, people have been freaking out because Netflix doesn't put movies in theaters. And when they do, take a look at what they did with Stranger Things. Not a movie, but with Stranger Things, they did a single day event essentially for Stranger Things, and then it's out. K-Pop Demon Hunters, another huge hit on their hands that they only put in theaters for a limited run. And then they do these limited runs occasionally with other films and movies. Sometimes it's just for a week. Sometimes it's just a weekend. Very, very rarely do they ever put anything in theaters long term. So with the whole sale pending, with Warner Brothers going to Netflix, or Warner Brothers assets, I should say, going to Netflix, the conversation has been, well, what is Netflix going to do in regards to theatrical? Well, Ted Sarandos, who's co-CEO of Netflix, has stated many, many times now, seemingly since this whole sale has come through over the last month, that they're committed to the theatrical release structure, specifically when it comes to Warner Brother assets and Warner Brothers pictures. But nobody really knew what that meant because he had a lot of different things that he would say, whether it's recently or in the past. People were trying to like figure out, okay, are you talking about sticking to the 45-day window or sticking to a new format? Because he's even said things like, hey, I think it's something that we have to look at, and I want shorter times and this and that. So when it comes down to it, people are just like, well, what's going to happen? Well, there was a report that came out from Deadline, and they're saying Netflix has long advocated for a 17-day theatrical window. Now, to be fair, because I want to be open with everybody here, because I know a lot of people hate this idea. But to be fair, 17 days is pretty much a typical run for a movie when it comes to their box office success. I'm not saying they don't make money after that fact, but the bulk of the money that a movie makes is within the first 2 to 2.5, 3 weeks. Okay. So, in the grand scheme of things, Netflix looking at something that way isn't a terrible thing, because they're looking at it as, look, a movie's going to make the most amount of money in this short amount of time. Now, I'm not sitting here advocating for this. I'm not sitting here saying, Netflix, you're right, every movie should be 17 days. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm also not saying is that the current structure of 45 days is right either. I do think that there needs to be some sort of new way of looking at this stuff. There really is. For instance, okay, I've said this before. I think they need to look at limited runs, or not limited runs, but you put a movie out and it does well, and then it comes out of theaters, and then you wait a little while, some time, before you put it digitally, or before you put it out on to buy on video or whatever. And right before you do that, for a couple weeks, you put it back in theaters or something. Like, I think there's like that kind of stuff they should do. The reason for it is because I think the theatrical chains, the theaters, the AMCs, the Cinemarks, the Regals, everything like that, they get screwed over if you just do that 17-day run. Because in those first 2 weeks, the bulk of the money, the bulk of the proceeds, or the income from those movies' ticket sales goes to the studio. Now, every week thereafter, sure, the percentages start to shift in favor of the theatrical chains. But at that point, that's, the movie's not making a lot of money. I get that. Where is the benefit for keeping theaters around then? And that's kind of the problem I see with this whole thing. Now, I get that this is all discussion. I know some people are freaking out saying, well, they're not saying they're definitely doing it. No, I'm not saying that either. And neither did Deadline. I think some people are just misreading it. But then again, I don't think that they're totally far off the mark here. I think in some circumstances, a shorter run makes sense. Heck, I think Paramount, is it Paramount or Universal? One of the two has been doing that already for most of their films. I mean, they put a movie out for a few weeks, and then within a few weeks, it's out on digital to buy, not to stream for free, but to buy. Let's look at Warner Brothers. I mean, Superman was out in theaters for 30 days, and then you could buy it. Studios have been adapting, have been looking at different ways of going about doing this already. And the theatrical window, mind you, does not mean that the movie will be pulled from theaters at that time. What that theatrical window would mean is that after 17 days, it's got a chance to go on digital to buy at home. They could still, at that point, if the theatrical chains are like, look, we would love to keep it in the theater still, they could keep it in the theater as well. So keep that in mind, because there are deals that can be done in that regard. That's just how it works. That's how the industry works. I mean, there's been so many times that I've seen films that have just been terrible going to theaters and are out within 2 weeks. Then you see films that have done absolutely great, and they just seem to never come out of the theater. Again, things adapt over time depending on the success or failure of that movie, especially with the movie theaters. So we could see something similar like that happen here, be performance based. But they could say, hey, we want our normal to be 17 days. If after 14 days it's doing great and we have a chance to make $1 billion, hey, we'll extend it another 20 days or another 30 days. That's something that could happen. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. That's just something that we could see happen over the course of all of this, if this were to ever come to fruition with their 17-day, uh, decision, or if they'd make that decision. I think though, when it comes to DC, because let's bring it back around to DC. We know DC, part of Warner Brothers, going to Netflix. It's going to be under the Netflix umbrella. Can this hurt DC? Would this hurt DC? I don't think it would. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be that would destroy something like DC. Take a look at the genre as a whole when it comes to the superhero comic book movie genre right now. These films they don't have lasting power in theaters anymore. Your big event films, absolutely. Your Avenger films, your Deadpool and Wolverines, your big event films. I'm sure once we get to a Justice League, those event films have lasting power. They stay there. They're huge. They're big events. But we're in a genre, we're not in a genre, we're in a time now where the genre has sort of shifted back to what it once was, where the solo films, the movies that are just focusing on Superman or Spider-Man, or I won't even say Spider-Man. Spider-Man will be pretty big, I'm sure, because he's just a big name. But your Ant-Mans and things like that, like those movies, at least what we've seen over the last 5 years, have become just, hey, it's a fun movie to go see your first 2 weekends. After that, you might get some stragglers to come in. There's not any lasting power. There's not a lot of people talking about it. That's just how superhero films used to be. It wasn't until the 2010s, after the Avengers, where it really exploded. And at that point in time, when it exploded like that, yeah, we started seeing movies like Ant-Man, like Guardians of the Galaxy, like Captain Marvel, hitting that 800 to near $1 billion on their own. But we're in a different time now. So when it comes to these movies, when it comes to the superhero genre, the comic book movie genre, 17 days isn't a terrible thing to look at, especially if they're open to the idea that, hey, if we put a Wonder Woman movie out and it does $600 million in the first 2 weeks, look, we have a chance to maybe hit that billion. Let's extend it for another 2 or 3 weeks. And with that understanding, because the theaters would absolutely be okay with that, because that's going to keep drawing people into the theaters. So again, I think it's going to be more of a fluid type of thing that Netflix is looking at right now. But again, that's not just Netflix. And Netflix is getting the bulk of the hate right now, when other studios have been looking at this type of stuff, have been testing these types of release structures already. But Netflix, because there's so much on them right now of what's going on with Warner Brothers, people are like, oh, Netflix, how could you say that? How could you do that? I'm not going to sit here and say that this is the fix, because I think, look, you guys know I don't have a theater near me. I want a theater near me. I can't stand that I have to drive nearly an hour to get to a theater. The thing is, there has to be a way to not allow these theaters to go under. And maybe it is doing stuff like this to entice the theaters to think outside the box themselves. Maybe they cannot rely solely on the studios. Maybe the theaters have to think outside the box and do some things themselves. So we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know a lot of people are like, this will destroy the theatrical experience, the theatrical industry, things like that. I don't think it'll destroy it completely, but I also don't think this is where it's going to land. I think that, look, these studios are talking. They're trying to figure out the best way to maximize their profits. And absolutely they should, because they're the studios. But I also say, look, you can't have studios without theaters, and you can't have theaters without studios. One can't exist without the other. It just can't, because otherwise you just get glorified made for TV movies, which is basically what Netflix is. So you kind of have to have both to survive, for each industry to survive. And they really need to figure out how to make that work. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. Like I said, this is something that Deadline reported on. You can check out what my breakdown is and my discussion is over at slasfreetalk.com and all of that. But what are you guys saying over here? Let's see. Let's see. Donovan says, with this story, I'm not believing anything. It's all hearsay, and even in the same article, they comment that Netflix is still committed to releasing Warner Brothers movies in theaters, while at the same time spreading a piece of info from a faceless source. I mean, yeah, that's how a lot of these things do. They're not going to give away their sources. And again, this doesn't mean that this is what's going to happen. That's why I made sure, look, this is coming from Deadline. This is something that may or may not happen. This is something that may or may not work, and they may explore it at some point. Let's also not forget, though, that I think there's like an agreement where movies until 2030 are going to stick to that 45-day window for the most part. So again, they have to honor that as well. Derpy says, honestly, this could benefit the product for DC Studios. And he says 25 to 30 days. It could. Donovan says it. Till this is officially confirmed, I'm not believing anything. You're right. Again, and you say it here, they're still in the early stages of the merger. I mean, they're still discussing what the merger will look like and all that kind of stuff. Again, this is just a discussion, a talk, because I've been saying this. This Netflix deal could fall apart at the 12th hour. That's a possibility. So everything they say today could matter not in a year, but it's still a topic of discussion. Trayvon says, remember, 46% of U.S. households prefer to stream movies at home. Convenience, distracting crowd noises, and the cost of all outweigh the experience. Theater purists bang the table over. Yes and no. I mean, you're not wrong about the percentage. But I think that if you can make it a experience, for instance, let's take the movie Weapons. Is that a movie you have to see in theaters? Not at all. That is a movie that you can watch at home. You could watch it at home. You could enjoy it just as you did in theater. Now, I didn't enjoy it at all, but when I saw it, because I saw it in theaters, there was not a part of me that was in that theater thinking, oh, man, this is so much better on the big screen than it would have been on the small screen. A movie like The Naked Gun, hilarious movie, great comedy movie that just came out with Liam Neeson. But again, did it need a theatrical release? Not necessarily, because there's nothing about that movie that is about the theatrical experience. You could sit at home and watch it for much cheaper and enjoy it just the same. However, Avatar just came out. Big spectacle. You must see it on the big screen. That is a movie that you should see on the best screen that you can possibly see. Okay, that makes sense. You talk about the big event films like The Avengers or Star Wars and things like that. Absolutely. The big action set pieces. Those are the types of movies that are spectacles. Christopher Nolan films, spectacles on the big screen because of the way he handles using the cameras and the sound design and everything like that. It works so much better in the theater. So, yes, there's a portion of films that I agree that most people will just say, I'll just watch it at home. But when it comes to the spectacle, when it comes to the experience, I do believe that people would be much more willing and much more likely to go to a theater to see it. However, they need to have a reason to go to the theater. They need to have a theater close to them. When I had a theater close to me, I was going to 1 or 2 movies a month, if not more. I was going to the movies all the time. But now that it's almost an hour away, I might see in the theater, 8 movies a year, 10 movies a year in the theater, if that, because I'm not driving an hour unless it's a movie I really, really want to see, because it's almost an hour there and almost an hour back. Plus the 2 hours for the movie. You're talking that's almost half my day just gone. because I'm driving to a theater, watching a movie, and coming back home. So for me, that's why I don't go as often as I did or do or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the same for a lot of people. I think a lot of other people are the same way. Like to get there, some people don't have one close by. It's the cost, things like that. You need to make it worth their while. And while the movie itself absolutely should be worth your while, sometimes you got to do some different things. And I think sometimes have some fun at the theater. Make it fun at the theater. I'm sick of walking into a theater and the employees just looking miserable with their life. And these are kids that most of the time they're kids working there and they just hate life and they're just throwing popcorn around and like be excited. Like, oh, what do you watch? Oh, I can't. It's so great that you're seeing that. Talk to the patrons, talk to the people coming in to get excited. And I think that would change a lot for sure for the theaters and for people wanting to go. And Donovan even says, I mainly go to the theaters for event films. I mean, that's pretty much what people do anymore. And that's a shame. I mean, I remember years ago going and seeing movies like Knocked Up, like because it was an experience, because it's a movie you want to sit there and laugh with people in the theater. It's more fun to laugh with a group of people. But comedies anymore, you just don't see as much, and people don't go to the theater to see them. They just don't, unless it's something they really, really want to see. And then Critic Chris, it's the same with me, Slav. Driving distance wise, I think there's only 10 movies I plan to see in 2026. Yeah, I mean, I did a list. What did I do? It was like 25, 26 movies, something like that, 27 movies that I want to see this year. I put my list up on X. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I can't imagine me driving down to the theater to see all these movies this year. So I'm definitely going to pick out the ones that I really, really want to see. But there's a lot of those movies that I truly want to see that I'm just going to have to wait till they come to digital or come to streaming to watch, because I'm just not going to drive the distance. All right. Let's move on to the next topic, though. The next topic is James Gunn on making Superman not being interested on making Superman not being interested in prestige projects in DC Studios' future. This coming from Variety. Now, we're going to go through this article. I don't know if you guys got a chance to read it, but I kind of want to give my thoughts on it, because I've seen some people say some ridiculous things on social media about what James Gunn has said here. And a lot of it I actually agree with him on. Some of it I question, but we'll get into it here for sure. Now, they talk about how he looks tired but energized when he's getting in his chair for this podcast that they do where they talk to him. It's called the Award Circuit Podcast. And he came from Atlanta, which I do believe he lives in the Georgia area anyways, but he flew in. He's heavy in production of Man of Tomorrow, or pre-production of Man of Tomorrow, which I guess is news in itself. Man of Tomorrow is in pre-production. People are excited about that. So, they really wanted to get down and talk to him about some things. And the big thing that they asked him was Superman. And they wanted to ask him some questions about that and what drew him to the character. So he says this. He says, when I first talked to the cast and crew, I wanted to make something about goodness. This guy isn't perfect. Even though he's Superman, he's really just trying to do his best. He's good-natured, he's loving, he sees the best in everyone. I mean, that's the movie. If you watch the movie, that's exactly how he is. And I sort of like the approach to that here, because he isn't perfect. Even though he's Superman, he's not perfect. He's just trying to do the best that he can. I've seen some people try to compare this statement in his Superman to that of Man of Steel and Henry Cavill's Superman. And they're like, well, isn't that basically what Henry Cavill was? Well, no, Henry Cavill had no idea what he was doing. It's not that he wasn't perfect. They were trying to make him perfect in an imperfect world. That's what they were doing with that Superman, that iteration of Superman, trying to be the perfect being within an imperfect world. This Superman is just, look, he's as imperfect as the world, but he's Superman. and he's trying to do his best. He's good-natured, he's loving, and all of that. Like, that's the whole idea behind this Superman, is he is just as human, just as earthly as everybody else, but he's Superman. And that's what I like about what he says here. He says that idea was Superman is not a god, but a sincere, sometimes awkward moral presence. That became Gunn's anchor, and he credits Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman for crystallizing that approach. He says that was the thing that hooked me, he shares, that big lug of superhero being genuinely kind. That's what I took from the book. And I love it because that's who Superman is. And that was kind of one of the biggest complaints about what Zack Snyder did with his version of Superman, is he just didn't seem like Superman. Like, he seemed mopey when he was Clark. And then when he was Superman, it was all about being a god and things like that. That's not what Superman is. And that's what I liked about it. Now, unlike the relative freedom Gunn had with Guardians of the Galaxy, Superman came with a century's worth of expectations and, of course, disagreements. He said everyone in the world thinks something different about Superman. Everybody knows who he is. The scrutiny extended beyond the Cape. Gunn was aware that this film would be viewed as a referendum on the future of DC itself. He says, there were all these eyes on us, on DC, on the DCU, on everything, he says. That pressure was real. Yes, it was. And let's not act like we didn't discuss that all the time. There was immense pressure on James Gunn, immense pressure on what they were going to do with this film, immense pressure on how they were going to establish this new universe. Now, for a lot of us, we believe he knocked it out of the park, and there's still some who are not sold on it yet. That's fine. That's to be expected. It truly is. He said, casting then was non-negotiable. If I couldn't find Superman, I wasn't going to make the movie. David Cornstalk was the second audition he saw. He says, I remember thinking, if that's the worst we do, we're in great shape. So he talked a little bit about Superman there. And again, what he says, it's constantly reminding me that he is such a great storyteller. He's such a fan of these stories as well. And it's great to see. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this thing, where there's some excerpts from the podcast. And these are really interesting ones. So he was asked, what made Superman the hardest film you've directed? He says, this was the hardest movie I have ever made. The next hardest was probably the first Guardians. With Guardians, you were building a corner of the universe that felt completely different from everything else Marvel was doing at the time. Here, I was reorienting something everyone already thinks they understand. Strangely, it's the most comic book driven thing I've done, more than any of my other superhero films. And he said that on multiple occasions over the past year or so, that Superman is the most comic book driven thing that he's made. Excuse me. Now, I agree. This movie is very comic booky. I mean, you watch this movie from start to finish, it just feels like a comic book jumping off the page. And I guess in a way, that's a good thing and a bad thing. Excuse me. But yeah, I think when he sits there and says this was the hardest movie that he's made, it's because he wanted to stay as true to the comics as possible while he had to set up a new universe. He talks about assembling his creative team and how now being in charge of DC meant that he could finally keep the team together. A team together that he likes. And that's what we're going to see from every movie that he's doing. He gets to keep the same team together because he's the one running the studio. And if he likes these people, he can keep them. Whereas typically, if you're a director for hire, for instance, like at Marvel will be utilizing a handful of different types of people, same cinematographers, same art designers, things like that. And sometimes if you go from one movie and then a few years later you come back to do another movie, those people that you've worked with could be working on another movie at Marvel or may have moved on to another film somewhere else, and you don't get to utilize those same people. In this case, he has the ability to keep the same team that he wants as long as they want to work with him. And that's what he's saying here. He's then asked, what are you most proud of in the visual effects, especially with Crypto the dog? He says, Frame Store's work on crypto is extraordinary. I'll put those shots up against anything I've ever seen. ILM was incredible as well. It was just a world-class group of artists working at the highest level. I get some people say some of the CGI in that movie, Superman, isn't great. Crypto is phenomenal. That dog, like, there's nothing about that dog in any shot that he is in that doesn't feel like it's a real live dog that is in that moment. Okay, so every shot, even when he's flying, even when he's jumping around like a nut, he feels like a real live dog. The kaiju battle, absolutely phenomenal. The CGI was great. I think the only issue that I ever had with CGI in that movie was Baby Joey. And I'm going to be completely honest. It was Baby Joey. But besides that, everything else looked fantastic. So I agree. The special effects in that movie were great. He's then asked, how does it feel to be both a filmmaker and a studio head at the same time? He goes, I don't think it's ever really been done. Even Walt Disney was more of a producer than a director. It's an experiment. And yes, sometimes it probably sounds like madness, especially since I don't make the most conventional films. But I love big spectacle. That's my jam. I originally said no to the job. I didn't want to do what Kevin Feige does. But once Peter and I realized we'd be doing it together, it became exciting. I still don't know if it's sustainable long term. It's a lot. There just aren't enough hours in the day. All right, there's multiple things here I want to talk about, specifically things that people have pointed out regarding this comment here. Number one, when he talks about Walt Disney was a madman. Let's not look over that. If you've done any research or have ever learned anything about Walt Disney, he was a madman. From building the parks to creating the studio, the art studios for all of the animation side of things, to just being this huge presence around the studio and around the parks and everything like that. Like, he was ingrained in everything. There's special human beings in the world that can do that. And when James Gunn says, I don't think it's ever really been done, even Walt Disney was more of a producer than a director, he's not wrong. Because of how spread thin Walt Disney was, he wasn't a director that often. I can't even remember how many films he directed. There were a few that he did. But for the most part, he just kind of stuck around and called the shots. You don't see this. You don't see a studio head ever running a studio as well as filming and directing and writing like he is. So it is an experiment. It's something new. It's something different. So when you sit and look at that, because let's not forget, James Gunn is a storyteller first and foremost. He's a writer. He's a filmmaker. That's his first love. But when he's sitting there saying, I still don't know if it's sustainable long term, what he's saying is, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this long term, where I am running a studio and doing my passion of writing and directing. That's what he's saying. That's understandable. That is understandable. It's disappointing to hear, because I'd love to see him continue, because I admire him as a storyteller, and I would love to see him build out this world even more. But I get it, because his first love is writing and directing and making films. Being a studio head is a lot more work, is a lot different than doing that. So to have to do those jobs, it's a lot. And that's why he says he doesn't know if it's sustainable long term, because it is a lot. This has nothing to do with what's going on with the studio, with the sale, the merger, anything like that. It has nothing to do with that. This is him on a personal level just stating, look, I'm loving what I'm doing now. I was hesitant at first, but me and Peter doing it together, we got excited. We have ideas. We're having fun. But I don't know how sustainable it is for long term, because it's a lot. It is a lot. That makes sense. Again, he states specifically here, I didn't want to do what Kevin Feige does. And he's not. He's not doing what Kevin Feige does. He's doing so much more. So much more. Now, does that make him better than Walt Disney? Does that make him better than Kevin Feige? Is that what he's saying here? Not at all. Not at all. He's just pointing out these little issues like, look, this has never really been done before. And I didn't want to do what Kevin Feige was doing, which is just simply being a producer and not getting to film make. He's like, I want to be able to do that too. So when I had the opportunity to do it, I jumped on it because, hey, let's build out this big world. I can still film make and do things like that, but it's a lot. I don't know if I can sustain doing it for long term, but I'm here for now. There you have it. Now, they talk about what made him fall in love with movies. You can read about that yourselves. This is another interesting one. How do you think about prestige versus mainstream filmmaking? He says, I don't care about prestige. I mean, sure. Would it be cool to be nominated for Best Director or something? Yeah. Would I rather have that than not? But it's not really my concern. Occasionally, I have ideas that are more independent movies, but I like making the kind of movies that I make, and I like making pop cinema, for the lack of a better term. If I can have those things also be something that are emotionally resonant to people or affect people in a deeper, more spiritual way, like a lot of people have told me that Superman did, a lot of people have told me that Guardians 3 did, then that's fantastic. That's what I would love to be able to do. But I like making the big movies too. There's an artistry to it, the creative flow. But then I also like the part of it that's putting the big puzzle together and creating this machine that works for an audience to elicit a reaction from them, whether it's emotional, whether it's laughter, whether it's screaming, whether it's whatever it is. That's the fun part of it. James Gunn is not gunning for an Oscar. He's not gunning to be the next Christopher Nolan, the next, Steven Spielberg or James Cameron. Like that's not who. Maybe James Cameron in a way because he does big spectacle. But again, it's not really what he's aiming for. He's aiming for to make the movies he wants to make, and he loves making these big pulp culture relevant films. And because of how good of a writer he is, sometimes, and it seems like more often than not, they hit the audience on an emotional level. Now, because of the type of films they are, you have the Academy Awards and the Golden Globes and those types of places. They don't take notice in what he's actually doing because it's like, oh, that's just another comic book movie, or that's just a goofy little, raunchy TV show or what have you, whatever it is. But he has a way of writing that hits the audience while making these big spectacles. Now, are they the greatest big spectacles ever? No, they're not. They're not James Cameron level of spectacles like Avatar. But again, that's not what he's looking to do. He understands his lane. He understands what kind of filmmaker he is, and he likes doing it. And that's what he wants to keep doing. More power to him. More power to him, and that's great to hear and see. Let's see. He's then asked, what can you tell us about Man of Tomorrow? He says, at its core, it's about Clark and Lex. He says, I relate to both of them. I relate to Lex's ambition and obsession, minus the murder. And I relate to Superman's belief in people, his Midwestern values. They're two sides of me. I mean, he's just trying to, look, he can't say much about Man of Tomorrow. Let's be real here. And he's basically said kind of the same stuff with Superman. So the only thing that he's revealed is it's about Clark and Lex. That's pretty much, and that's all he's said. That's all he's stated to this point for the most part, is that it has to do with Clark and Lex. It has to do with Superman and Lex. It has to do with the two of them coming together. That's all we know. We don't know anything else about the movie. So there you have it. Then he's asked about his partnership with Safran. He says, Peter's the best. He does everything I don't do well. He keeps the ship steady, keeps everyone aligned, connects us with Jim Lee and the comic side, and unifies departments that used to operate separately. What we share is a genuine love for these characters. Excuse me. We know what a privilege it is to help shape people see them now. Sorry about that. And that responsibility is something we take seriously. So, I enjoy what he says here. Because he talks about how it's important to him, how he understands the responsibility, what type of responsibility it is to be running the studio, to bring these stories to life. you can tell with what he says here, he's respecting everything. He's respecting the IP. We've never seen this. I say this all the time. We've never seen DC films handled like this before. And that is why I am so excited for the future with James Gunn. That is why I'm so excited about the future of the DCU. Because they're handling it with care finally. They're handling it with respect. They're handling it with great responsibility. So I love it. Let me know your thoughts, guys, on this whole thing. It was very interesting. It was an interesting read. I do encourage everybody to head to Variety to read it. And you can also listen to the podcast that he does, which is called, which is the Variety Award Circuit podcast. So you can check that out as well. All right, let me take a drink here. Sorry, my throat. Critic Chris says, Slav, off topic. Did you hear Netflix now has WWE Contact as Peacock no longer has it? Well, yeah, Peacock lost WWE. So since Peacock lost the rights as of January 1st, I think, excuse me, completely, all the content that was on there, with the exception of Saturday night's main event, will be either on Netflix, for the most part, Netflix. And then ESPN has the PLEs now, so it's all over the place. It is. It's crazy, and I think, what is it? Is it USA has SmackDown now? I don't know. It's everything is everywhere. It's all out of whack when it comes to WWE. Trayvon says Walt Disney was a madman. John Lasseter is a close second. Let's see. Chris says my family aren't comic book fanatics, but when they watch the movie, Krypto stole the screen to them. Yeah, Krypto stole it for a lot of people, even my kids. Trayvon says if Baby Joe is the only gripe you've had, then it's a good thing he was kept in the dark. And Baby Joey is watching you. Oh man. Sean O'Rourke thinks that Framestone and ILM is bargain bin. Well, ILM is one of the top in the country, or in the industry, I should say. But Disney uses them for almost everything because it's Industrial Light and Magic and the connection that it had to Lucasfilm for so long, and George Lucas and his relationship that he had with Disney for so long, all that kind of stuff. A lot of other companies use ILM as well. I think weren't all the Transformers done by ILM, or for the most part, a lot of them were. But ILM's huge. I mean, it's not bargain bin at all. Not even a little bit. Donovan says, hot take, Gunn has more reverence for Superman than Snyder. Critic Chris, I watched Golden Era Wrestling, so now I may subscribe to Netflix. I don't know if they have what they have on there. I haven't even really looked at it yet. Like to see what all they have on there. So, but I know there's stuff there. All right. Still with James Gunn. James Gunn actually talked a little bit about Supergirl, and he goes, I love Millie Alcock in the movie. It's a space fantasy, which is like Guardians in a way, but it's based on the Tom King book. It doesn't follow it religiously, but it has a lot of the core of that there. I'm really excited for people to see it and see Millie. Obviously, people take offense to this. People take offense to what he says here, and it's ridiculous because, first off, it's a space fantasy. That's what Guardians of the Galaxy was. Guardians of the Galaxy was a space fantasy. That's what it was. To sit there and say, Supergirl's a space fantasy, which is like Guardians in a way, you can't get mad about that because Guardians was a space fantasy film franchise. So Supergirl, it's a space fantasy, which you can connect and compare to Guardians. Okay. But he then says it's based on the Tom King book, which we all knew, Woman of Tomorrow. But he says this, it doesn't follow it religiously, but it has a lot of the core of that there. Now, people are upset about this. Well, first off, anybody who thought they were going to follow the book verbatim is ridiculous. I say this all the time. When they make a movie based off of an established story, I personally don't want them to copy it word for word, scene for scene, everything like that. Why? Because I have the book. I have the source material to look at, to read, to watch, to whatever. So I don't want that redone completely in live action. I want the filmmaker, I want the writer and the filmmakers to actually have a chance to put their mark on it, their spin, and give their input on the story and the character. So I'm okay with that. And that's kind of what this genre does as a whole. Whether it's Marvel, whether it's DC, it doesn't matter. They take these stories and they're like, hey, we like this story, but let's adapt for the big screen. Let's adapt it in a way that is similar to what the story is, but make it fit a 2-hour-long movie. And you can't always take a 12-issue miniseries or a whole graphic novel or whatever it is and throw it up on screen because there's just not enough time. So I'm okay with what he says here. 100%. All right. This is interesting. Booster Gold. Natalia Safran seemingly confirmed again Kumail Nanjiani is Booster Gold. In a post here on from Instagram, the author hearted, she didn't say it, but she hearted a comment from this Ayrtondan, whatever, that says, can't wait to see Kumail Nanjiani as Booster Gold. And Natalia Safran hearted it, liked it. Is that confirmation? Who knows? Honestly, who really knows at this point? The fact of the matter is, we're going to be getting a Booster Gold in some form or fashion at some point. I'm not against the idea of Kumail Nanjiani. I know that a lot of people are. I'm willing to see how it plays out because I trust Gunn in his casting. And again, let's not forget that because you know a character from the page doesn't mean that's exactly how it's going to be on the screen because they may write it differently. So again, I don't hate it, but it's just this is never going to stop. It's never going to stop until we finally get the official announcement of Booster Gold. All right. Now, let's move on to the final topic of the day. The top 5 DC stories to look forward to in 2026. That's right. We did the other day the top 5 DC stories from 2025, but now we're going to look forward to what could be the top 5 stories of 2026. I'm excited for 2026. When it comes to DC, I think it's going to be a fun year. So let's kind of go through this a little bit here. Supergirl hype. All right. Let's be honest here. Supergirl is going to be a huge film for DC. But to get there, they're going to have to promote this movie. And the hype is going to build over time. Is the hype going to be the same level that it was for Superman? It's debatable. I don't think it's going to be. Supergirl isn't as, I won't say recognizable, but not as beloved. That's a good way to put it. Not as beloved as Superman is. But it is maybe the most anticipated DC project of 2026, maybe. For some, I would say for the general audience, it is. It is the second film in the DCU. And I think this is the one that's going to really open the door to showcasing the wider galaxy and the strange that is the DCU. And that's why I'm excited for it. I think with every trailer, every poster, and every bit of marketing that's going to come out, it's just going to fuel the fire for the excitement for Supergirl. And yeah, I think that's going to be kind of the first, one of the big stories of 2025 is the hype getting to Supergirl. Next up is Clayface and how this could be the surprise win of the year for DC. When you think about it, when you sit back and think about it, Clayface is unconventional. It's really the weirdest swing DC Studios could have made at this point in the studio's existence. Who would think that the best idea is for the third movie of a new franchise to be an R-rated horror film based on a villain that isn't even one of the top probably 5, maybe not even top 10 villains in Batman's rogue gallery. Like, when you sit there and think about it, you're kind of just like, that is kind of bizarre, isn't it? That's kind of a bizarre move. But this isn't a risk financially. This is more a risk when it comes to perception, because financially, I think this movie is almost a guaranteed hit. The rumors are that this movie is only going to cost them what? I think 40 million to 60 million, something around there to make. So you figure this movie has to make, let's be a little, kind here. Let's say it has to make $130 million to be profitable. The fact that it's going to have the DC branding, they're going to promote it as a DC story. I think it's almost guaranteed to hit that within the first week or two of being out. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw upwards of, say, 250 to 350 with this movie. So when you sit back, yeah, this is going to probably be a huge surprise win for most people's eyes. It may not be a surprise for DC, but in a lot of people's eyes, it's going to be a surprise. And let's also not forget that horror is huge right now. So they sell the DC label, sell the fans on the DC label, and sell the horror aspects of it. Yeah. Think of Sinners numbers. I honestly say, you sit there and think of how well Sinners did last year or this past year. I could see it doing similar numbers to Sinners. So keep an eye out on that. I think it's going to be a huge hit for him. I think another big story will be more DC projects will be announced. And, I get it. I know some people don't think this. I've talked to a lot of people. I see a lot of people jump in my comment sections who sit there and say, Slav, they're not going to do much more with DC until this merger is complete or this sale is complete. And you couldn't be more wrong. DC is not just going to stop. It's not going to just stop. DC is going to move forward and truly build out its universe and plan for the future. Like I said, the Netflix deal could fall apart in the 12th hour. If DC Studios sits on their hands up until that happens, they're then going to be rushing to announce and get projects created and ready to go. They can't do that. If the deal goes through, Netflix is going to want to see a future. They're going to want to see plans for the future for DC. They don't want to sit there and they don't want to come in and say, oh, you only plan up to Man of Tomorrow? You have nothing after that? They want to see what's going on after that. So all intents and purposes, we're going to start to hear about new projects that are going to come out in 2027 around Man of Tomorrow and maybe even early 2028. So to me, that's exciting. Are we going to get confirmation of a Wonder Woman movie? Are we going to get a Brave and the Bold update? A release date possibly? Are we going to get more TV shows? Because personally, I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see in the next 12 months some announcements coming between now and December of what to expect, even if it's just 3 to 5 projects. What's coming up between now or from 2027 to 2028. I could see them announcing some things. So that's another one. And then Man of Tomorrow set leaks are inevitable. Look, we saw this before in 2024 with the Superman. But with Man of Tomorrow about to start its production, it's only a matter of time until we start to see the grainy set leaks of photos. And of course, with that will come the haters saying that it's the worst movie to ever be made. Look how terrible it looks. Why is there a squirrel? And why is he wearing underwear on the outside of his pants? And things like that. Why are there wrinkles? Because that's what's going to happen. We're going to hear that once again with these set leaks. But On the flip side, you're going to have the DC fans, the fans who are excited, who are going to theorize, who are going to break down the different costumes and the colors and the context as the excitement builds. And that's why it's going to be one of the big stories of 2026. And then finally, I say the Lanterns show will show a different side of the DCU, much like Clayface. Well, I think Clayface is going to give us like this weird horror aspect of it. Lanterns is all about tone. And what I mean by that is this is DC proving that the universe doesn't have to feel the same across every project. Look, Supergirl being the second movie is going to feel very similar to Superman. I have no doubt. Yes, it's a galaxy cosmic adventure. There's going to be some weird things in there for sure. But I think at the core of it, it's going to still feel like a continuation of Superman. The next project after that is Lanterns. But I think with this is going to be where people start to talk in how different it feels from Superman and Supergirl, how different it feels from Peacemaker, how different it feels from what James Gunn has made before, specifically within the DC universe. And that's going to be a big driving force on the excitement that continues to build for DC. It's going to show how grounded and confident DC television can be. So for me, I think these are the 5 stories that are going to kind of encapsulate what DC, specifically the DCU, is this year. Now, granted, I didn't touch things like comics. I didn't touch things like the animated shows or the animated movies that are coming out. Why? Well, comics have been tearing it up. We just talked about that the other day. I think it's going to continue, but I don't think it's going to be one of the main stories of 2026. It could be if they do something drastic and crazy and exciting. Absolutely could be. Could be one of the big stories. And we'll talk about it at the end of the year. Same with animation. There's nothing that kind of sticks out to me that I sit here and say, animation-wise, DC is going to just kill it. Nothing yet. Doesn't mean it won't happen. It doesn't mean that Nightfall comes out, which comes out this year, I think, and it just doesn't blow everybody away. And if it does, then we'll talk about it at the end of the year. But as of now, these are the 5 stories I think. But if I missed something, let me know in the comments. I want to know what you think. Because honestly, you guys may have some different ideas and different opinions on what could possibly be the biggest stories for DC in 2026. So I'd love to hear them in the comments below. So do that now. All right, guys. What are you saying over here? We got the funny guy says, Happy New Year, Slav. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining. Nathaniel says, I don't trust Netflix. I get it. A lot of people don't. Funny guy says 17 days. I don't trust Netflix like that. Man, where were you guys earlier when we were talking about that? Trayvon says Netflix can breathe easy about Warner Brothers when you have Jim Cramer banging for Paramount to get them. Trust me, in the business world, that's a win for the opposing party, in this case, Netflix. Trayvon says, I'm very certain that one of the biggest stories of the year will be a surprise announcement of a DC video game. That could be. Yeah, I didn't even think about that either. Like, there's a lot of video game aspects that we still have question marks about when it comes to DC. Willie says, I'm surprised the internet is working today due to the Restore the Snyderverse event yesterday. Have a great day. I'm going back to building my Lego Iron Man. Had no idea there was an event yesterday. No idea. Wow. I'm shocked that, like you said, the internet's still up. Donovan says Kumail hasn't been officially cast yet. It's possible. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. Greg Chris says Nightfall Part 1 coming 2026. Greg Chris, I forget how many parts Batman Nightfall is being split into in animation. I think it's 2 parts. Is it 2 parts? Maybe. I don't know. Greg Chris says, what event? I'm guessing Willie says Snyderverse event yesterday. So did they do a hashtag event again? I don't know. I don't know. Funny Guy 9000. Wow, a Snyderverse hashtag event happened. Well, thankfully, I wasn't involved. That's funny. Let me see. Was there an event? Let's just look real quick. What would it be? Restore the Snyderverse, you think? Let's see. And it would have been the latest. 13 minutes ago, 14 minutes ago, 9 hours ago. Was it yesterday or was it today? So I'm seeing a decent amount today, but there's nothing trending. I don't know. I don't see anything. I see a lot of stuff from today. Top, anything in the top section? Right, here we go. This from 13 hours ago. The saga will be completed. So, how to restore the Snyder? Oh, this is just a how to restore the Snyderverse. Let's read. Okay, let's pull this up because this is. Let's have some fun here, right? Let's have some fun here. Because look, I get it. Some people it didn't work. Come on, work. There we go. There it is. All right, let's pull it up. All right. So it says the Snyderverse saga is easy to complete. Release the haircut, make Ben's Batman movie, make Snyder's JL 2 and 3. The saga would be complete. They could, however, expand on it as much as they wanted to. So this is what this person says here. How to restore the Snyderverse. I don't know if you guys can read it. Hopefully you can. It says, 1. Release Man of Steel BVS Ultimate Edition, Zack Snyder's Justice League in theaters. All right. The Ultimate Edition of BVS and Zack Snyder's Justice League haven't been seen in theaters before. They could even add in the Green Lantern scene into Zack Snyder's Justice League. Okay. So, number 1, there you want to go and re-release old movies in the theaters. Okay. So we got that. Then it's release the air cut of Suicide Squad. David could film an additional nightmare scene like Zack did with Zack Snyder's Justice League. Why? Why would he do that? Whatever. 3, make Ben Affleck's Batman movie, which teases and leads into Zack Snyder's Justice League 2. Okay. Next, number 4, film Justice League Part 2 and Justice League Part 3 back to back. He says this would complete the Snyderverse. So these 4 steps complete the Snyderverse. They could, however, continue further if they so choose. They could then let Zack make Man of Steel 2. Then reboot. Hey, here's what you guys do. All right. You make 1, 2, 3 movies. So you're spending probably around 500, 600, maybe $700 million on 3 movies to make. All right. We'll be conservative. We'll say $600 million. So $200 million a piece. So you're going to make 3 movies, $200 million a piece, $600 million. You're going to make 3 movies. No, I'm sorry. And then a fourth one. So you're looking at $800 million because Man of Steel 2. But then after you do all of that, you then reboot everything with Flashpoint. This is why, look, they should have stopped where it says this would complete the Snyderverse. Everything after that is nonsense. It's just absolute, utter nonsense. It really is. Because even they have stuff down there like Wonder Woman 3, The Flash by Rick Famuyiwa, I can't say his name, the Cyborg movie, Deathstroke, Atom, Suicide Squad 2, Green Lantern. There's a whole bunch of stuff down there that I don't know. That's just wild to me. But they sit here and act like $1 billion to make 5, 6 movies is like, hey, just do this. Just do this. Just do this. Go for it. Go for it. It's not. They need to get on the same page. I say this all the time. If they want to be relevant as a movement, they need to all get on one page. They all need to understand what it is. And I'm sorry. All it is you're requesting Justice League 2 and 3. That's it. As simplified as possible. You make the simplest request. The simplest request is what you make. And you hope that it gets done. when you have some people over here saying Justice League 1 and 2, you have some people saying we want Batfleck and all this, or then you have people like this saying, oh, you could do those and release the Ayer cut and put all this in theaters, and if you want, you can make all these other movies. Like, that's where it starts to get a little absurd and ridiculous, and nobody wants to listen. Nobody wants to hear it. So, excuse me, I think it's kind of funny. I do. I think it's funny that you see stuff like this out there. Look, animate the Snyderverse, make it a comic book, simplify the ask. Simplify the ask. If you make it a comic book and it sells well, it could go to animation. And that's probably the best you're going to get. But that's just me. That's just me. Oh, boy. Okay. What are you guys saying over here? Willie Fish to Gas says, it's easy peasy. Absolutely easy peasy. Funny Guy says, didn't they hate Flash 2023 for rebooting? Yeah, they didn't like that at all. Trayvon, how old is Ben Affleck again? Inquiring minds want to know. I think he's like 93 now or something. I don't know. John Summers says, that sounds dumb. You said it. Oh, man. Is Affleck's Batman movie and Man of Steel 2 only talked about, never promised, as speculation? Ben Affleck's Batman they got through the script phase. Like, they were very heavy into developing that movie. Man of Steel 2? No. The closest they ever got to a Man of Steel 2 was Christopher McQuarrie and Henry Cavill talking with the studio about making one. That's the closest they ever got to a Man of Steel 2. It wasn't even with Zack Snyder. The closest they got was Chris McQuarrie and Henry Cavill pitching an idea to the studio to make it. That's the closest they ever got. Zack Snyder was not going to make Man of Steel 2. He made Batman v Superman. That's what happened. And then he wanted to do his story. He had no plans for a Man of Steel 2. The closest they got was what Chris McHugh and Henry Cavill pitched. Critic Chris says, yeah, it won't end after JL23. They'll demand more. Ron6751 says, I have a statement to make. It was a statement that is relevant to our society. I do have a giant-sized man thing. I'm proud of you, man. Good for you. Oh, boy. People these days. Good for you. All right. Well, oh, wait. We got one more here. Funny Guy says, let's be fair. Christopher McHugh, would be better directing fit for Superman for the DCEU. Yeah, probably. Probably be pretty good for it. I mean, he did some really good Mission Impossible films and also a really bad one, but hey, you get what you get, right? You get what you get. All right, guys. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks for joining me on this Saturday afternoon. I will be back on Monday with the normal time and show on Monday, so be there or be square. Wow, that's really ghetto. Why did I say that? Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for joining, and I will catch you all next week. Take it easy. Bye.